salam and the Ahlul Bayt. Until 5 years, almost 5 years later, in the year 40 after Hijrah, an assassin was sent on the eve of the 19th of Ramadan into Kufa, where Imam Ali alayhi salam, on the eve of the 19th of Ramadan, in the year 40 after Hijrah, to come and to assassinate Imam Ali alayhi salam, and he did so. And as such, Muawiyah was relieved. Now he could be in charge. Yes, there was Al-Hassan and there was Al-Hussein, but he had power, he had an unlimited amount of resources, and he tried everything in his possession and ability to stop the people from turning to the Ahlul Bayt, from seeking the truth. And as such, he began his schemes of propaganda, turning against the Ahlul Bayt, doing everything in his ability. For many years, Muawiyah would make it an obligation upon the speaker, the khatib of the Friday prayers, and the Muslims to do what? To curse Ali ibn Abi Talib in public. Your khutbah, your salah is not acceptable. It won't reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unless you do what? You give it a little boost. How do you give it a boost? You curse Ali ibn Abi Talib. And if you did not do so, there was a severe punishment for you. And this continued for many, many years, spreading rumors and lies about the Ahlul Bayt, to the point where people began to believe these rumors. They thought that in fact Ali ibn Abi Talib was a kafir. The Ahlul Bayt, they were kuffar, they were disbelievers. This was the media of Muawiyah. And we know that the media, it shapes the perceptions of people. We know this nowadays. We are very well aware of the strength of the media in shaping perceptions. And this is what Muawiyah did, to the point where people also thought that Ali ibn Abi Talib, they believed that Ali ibn Abi Talib did not pray. This was the rumor that was going around, that Ali ibn Abi Talib did not pray. Ali doesn't pray. Ali, who was born in the house of Allah, the only person to ever be born in the house of Allah, and who died in the house of Allah, in between he didn't have time to pray. So these were the lies and the rumors that were spread about the Ahlul Bayt. And then the time came where Muawiyah faced his doom. Before he died, of course, during this time also, he had dealings with Imam Hassan alayhi salam. There was a treaty between Muawiyah and Imam Hassan that Imam Hassan would take over the imamah after Muawiyah. And there were many reasons. I don't want to get into the specifics of this. This requires a complete lecture by itself. But in the end, Muawiyah was the one who annulled this treaty. He trampled on it. And so, before his death, he decided to turn to whom? To his closest, the apple of his eye, Yazid ibn Muawiyah. And he told him, listen, you're going to be the Khalifa after me. And if anyone tells you otherwise, you know exactly what to do. And Yazid, he had heard the stories by his father about what had happened in the early years of Islam, what happened to his grandfather Abu Sufyan and the rest of Bani Umayyah, what happened to Uthman, what happened to the rest of them. So he inherited this hatred and animosity from his father Muawiyah. He inherited it from him. Yes, we know that in Islam, people are not blamed for one another's misconduct. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not punish me based on what my father or mother did, or what my brother or sister did. But in this case, Yazid, he inherited this hatred from his father. He was taught to hate Islam. He was taught to hate the Prophet. He was taught to hate the Ahlul Bayt. And thus, as a result, in the year 61 after Hijrah, initially after Yazid, he took power. He turned first and foremost to Imam Hussein to receive his pledge of allegiance, his bay'ah from Imam Hussein. What did he do? Imam Hussein said, absolutely not. You are asking me for my allegiance? You want me to consider you my leader? You are known to commit adultery, to fornicate, to drink, to gamble, to do all of the things that are wrong in public. And you're happy about it, you're proud about it, you announce it. And you expect me to pay allegiance to you and consider you my leader and my imam? Absolutely not. The Quran says, يَوْمَ نَدْعُو كُلَّ أُنَاسٍ بِإِمَامِهِمْ. On that day, the day of judgment, we will call people by whom? By their imams. You want me to be called by your name? They say Yazid and I have to come along behind you? Absolutely not. And so Yazid decided the threat was too big. And he decided to exterminate Hussein ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib. The Imam, his final days in the city of Medina. He knew that he had to leave. And you know that when you want to leave that city in which you were born and raised in, you know, the place that you're born in most cases, and you live in for a while, you have a yearning for that place. There's a special connection that you acquire between that place in which you were born and you were raised in, and between yourself. There's a connection, there's a love. Ask your elders, those who have been away from their home countries, they tell you there's a yearning for us to go back. There's a love that we have to go back to the place that we were born and raised in. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he was born and raised in the city of Medina. Everything he knows, all of his memories are from the city of Medina. He remembers growing up in the house of whom? In his own house? No. In the house of his dear grandfather Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. He remembers this. He remembers how his prophet, his dear grandfather, would take him in, who would hug him, who would kiss him, who would show his affection to him, who would take Imam Hussein and proudly announce him and show his affection in front of all of the Muslims. Hussein remembers, these are his memories from the city of Medina. So as he is leaving, he decides to do what? He knows that he's not returning to the city of Medina. There's no coming back. These are his final moments in this city, the city of his grandfather. So he decides to do what? To go to those who are dearest to him. When you decide to leave somewhere on a journey, what do you do? Who do you go to? You go to those who are closest to you, your family members and your friends, in order to bid them farewell, to tell them that you are going. Who did Imam Hussein alayhi salam have who was alive at the time for him to go and bid farewell to? His dear grandfather Rasulullah was passed away. His father Amir al-Mu'mineen had passed away, and in fact he was buried very far away in the land of Kufa. His mother Fatima al-Zahra had been killed unjustly and she had passed away. His brother Al-Hassan had passed away. He had no one to go to bid farewell, so he decides to go to the grave of his grandfather Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. He goes in the middle of the night, he goes towards the grave of his grandfather. He sits there, he begins to pray in khushu' and sincerity and devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then he sits by the grave of his grandfather. He places his cheek on the grave of his grandfather. He begins to cry. He remembers all of the memories that he has from his grandfather. He begins to cry and to weep. And as he is crying, he falls asleep and he sees a dream. He sees a dream in which his grandfather Rasulullah is coming towards him, marching towards him with an army of angels on his left and on his right. They are marching towards Imam Hussein. So he tells him, he looks at him, he tells him, "Are you my grandfather?" He says, "Yes, ya Habibi." He comes towards him, he tells him, "Habibi ya Hussein." He brings him forth, he hugs him and he begins to kiss him. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he begins to complain to his grandfather. He tells him, Ya Rasulullah, Ya Abatah, my father. The relationship that the Prophet had was that of a father and a son. He considered Hussein his son, and Hussein considered the Prophet his father. He told him, Abatah, I want to complain to you. I want to tell you and express to you all of the horrible things that have been occurring. Ever since your departure, things went poorly. My father was unjustly taken. He was imprisoned and he was dragged in the streets. My mother was killed as a result of her being stuck behind the door. Our house was burned down. Our rights were taken away from us. Everything that we had owned, everyone turned against us. My brother Al-Hassan, he was killed. He was poisoned by Muayyah, and now it is my turn. They have caused a lot of injustice and mischief. He begins to complain to his grandfather. His grandfather, he holds him close and he weeps. He tells him, Ya Habibi, Ya Hussein, my dear Hussein, my son, right now your father Ali ibn Abi Talib, your mother Fatima, your brother Hassan, all of the shuhada, your uncle Hamza, the rest, Ja'far al-Tayyar, they have all inhabited and gathered around the heavens, and they say, Ya Rasulullah, when is Hussein going to come and meet with us? When is Hussein going to come and reunite with us? And as such, we are waiting all impatiently to be reunited with you, oh dear Hussein. Imam Hussein, he weeps. He tells him, my dear grandfather, take me inside the grave with you. I don't want to go back to this life. I want to be taken away. I want to live with you and my family members now. The Prophet, he cries and he tells him, my dear son Hussein, there is a position for you here in heaven that you will only acquire if you go back and reach the station of Shahada. And in fact, not only will this be good for you, but this will also be good for your followers. Yes, brothers and sisters, the Shia, because the position of Imam Hussein was because he sacrificed his blood. This is why we receive the shafa'ah of Imam Hussein alayhi salam on the Day of Judgment. And so he tells him, you have to go back. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he wakes up, he is crying, he does not know what to do, and then he remembers that there is one more person he wants to visit before he leaves the city of Medina. He wants to go and to visit his dear mother Fatima al-Zahra. Brothers and sisters, those of you who have gone to Medina, they know that the grave of Fatima al-Zahra is unknown. We do not know where it is. We do not know where she was buried. Imam Ali alayhi salam, in the middle of the night, he took Fatima al-Zahra and he buried her. We do not know, but Hussein alayhi salam knows where his mother is. Hussein alayhi salam was present on the day in which his mother was killed. Hussein alayhi salam helped his father and family members in order to wash his mother and shroud her and to bury her in the middle of the night. Hussein alayhi salam saw the broken rib of his mother Fatima al-Zahra. So he turns to his mother's grave. He goes towards his mother and he begins to remember all of his memories. Allahu Akbar. He begins to remember how he grew up with his mother, but he did not spend a lot of time with her. Fatima was very young when she passed away. And as such, he begins to cry to his mother. And he tells her, my dear mother, if you were only here to see what is going on, Ya Fatima al-Zahra, oh Allah, do not allow any believing mother to witness the death of her son. Allahu Akbar. Oh Fatima, on the night, had you been there on Karbala on the day of Ashura to witness what had happened? Oh Fatima, I want to tell you something. The night that you were killed was very tragic for all of the Shia. All of our hearts and all of our ribs were broken when your rib was broken. Oh Fatima, but that night Imam Ali alayhi salam, your compassionate husband, your children Hussein and Hassan and Zainab and Kulthum and the Mu'mineen, they were with you. They participated in your funeral. They shrouded you. They washed you. They placed you in the dirt. They prayed over your body. But your son Hussein, on the day of Ashura in Karbala, he was left decapitated, a body without a head. His body was trampled by the forces of Yazid, and he was left without washing or shrouding or burial. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا آل محمد أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين.